There's nothing more than enough. And if that was enough, that's a great portion. But then he said, no, I've got more for you. So he sets another pie, if you will, on the table. And says, here's the Holy Spirit.
Yes.
And there's times that I think that is more than enough. And then if you thought that was enough, he said, I'm going to also give you gifts in the church. And there's 9 gifts, but 3 of those are the gift of faith, healings, and miracles. And I was sitting here just listening to the worship team. I tried very desperately to go to the back when we first got here to pray and think about things. But their singing was so anointing, I thought, oh man, I'm worshiping. I got to get right back in here to thinking about this, But that is why we're here.
Yes.
It is why we're here, to worship and to lift up the name of Jesus and to magnify him. Because he is our portion and he's more than enough.
Amen.
And so I just want to take a moment. I think we all do want to, as we say, see a miracle. But even on the way here, Pastor Ron was gracious enough to drive us here. And we saw a little bit of a miracle too. The car beside us had gotten a second coat of paint on his car. We would have been riding along the same piece of asphalt. He was close to us. But sometimes we don't even realize what God scoops over and keeps us safe and protects us. But we are here to talk to you tonight. We have seen a lot of miracles in our life. Not just in our personal life, we have. But I'm talking about in ministry for other people, to see what God is doing. God is doing great things, but he has a great desire to do miracles now. Because miracles, and I might be stealing something from him, I don't know, but miracles came to the church to get attention, to bring people in to hear the word. That's the reason for a miracle. We kind of got it backwards. We seek a miracle instead of a miracle maker. Mm-hmm. But I wanted to share with you that this is an accidental book that got published. We had a situation to come into our lives 2 years ago when a miracle suddenly happened. And I have a new respect for sudden miracles. We're an instant microwave society, and we want something instant until something miraculously, instantly happens to you, and it takes some adjusting. It takes a mental adjusting to an absolute miracle. But let me just briefly tell you, people don't usually tell you how a book ends, but we're not here about a book. We have them available. We're not here about a book. We're here to tell you how instantly God healed Larry. But that instant came with a 2.5 year wait period.
Come on.
Sometimes we give up if God doesn't do it when we push the microwave button for the 30 seconds. But what happened is, in 2015, Larry started experiencing just what I called events. It happened the first couple times, like once every 6 months, and it seemed to be a stroke. We would go to the hospital, stay 3, 4, 5 days, run all the tests. He had stroke symptoms, struggles with balance, vision, speech, face, drawn, confusion, all those things. And yet, after 3 or 4 days, we would go home with the doctors having no diagnosis. They would treat it as a stroke, but they would say, we didn't see a blood clot, we don't know. And so it became very frustrating. They offered PT and OT, and we learned that was a waste of somebody's valuable time, because time we got home, he would take 1 day to rest and he'd go back to work full time, as if nothing happened. And so even in that, we thought, well, maybe God is just healing him. Okay, so we just sort of followed that process. And so the following year, it started happening about every 3 months. And then in 2016, the end of 16 in November, it was an everyday occurrence. It was rough. And even though I know he's sitting here, it's still rough. It was rough. We didn't know what had happened, but this one particular day, he lost the ability to walk, to take care of himself completely, to talk. He was confused, he didn't know who he was, he didn't know where we were. We called an ambulance and they took him to the hospital. This time, I decided to go to another hospital. But at any rate, we got there, and by the time we got there, his blood sugar, if you know anything about that, if it's not Tylenol, I don't understand things, but his blood sugar was like 40, 45. That's not good. That's not good. And they couldn't wake him up. His blood pressure was really, really super low. And I was watching them, shoot in whatever, glucose, whatever the sugar is, into several shots trying to get it to come back up. It took a long time, to which he didn't respond very well even to the next day. But this is when I started journaling. A doctor came in and said, we're going to take over your case. And he said, we're going to start running tests. And they did that. They still didn't know exactly what was going on. But at the end of many, many tests, he should be glowing in the dark with all the CAT scans and MRIs and all of those things. But at the end, I'll never forget the day that I stood in his office, and it was a beautiful day. I looked out the window, and the sun was shining, and it was so beautiful. And yet, I knew the words of our doctor was pulling me back into a very dark situation, and I knew that was clearly the day I knew that we were facing a very strong enemy. But even in that, I didn't panic because I knew I had a stronger advocate on my side. So I wasn't fearful. Not that I wasn't concerned, not that I wasn't very concerned, but I knew to just keep on trusting God. So I started, because everything started happening so quickly, he would have days where you wouldn't know anything was wrong. He'd be working full-time at the church, counseling, speaking, sharing, and then maybe later that afternoon, not know anything, be in inability to walk or on a walker or even in a wheelchair. It just became this crazy cycle every day of nothing being normal. This wonderful man here many times helped him out of the church because we would go to church thinking this was an okay day. And I remember texting Ron one day and said, please walk him out. Please take him out. It was hard. And this man was so gracious. He never made it look like he wasn't doing anything. Like they were just walking out. God just used him to walk under him and with him. And so I started journaling only because it was happening so quickly that the doctors were asking questions. So I started writing down, things that were happening, things that were going on. And the doctor decided that no one in Richmond knew or were he didn't specialize in what he decided that he had. He was very sure at that time. He didn't use the term, but we later found out that they considered it Lewy body, a very aggressive form of dementia, that it has a life of 2.5 years, and we were already, later we learned we were already at the end of 2 years. We were at the end of the 2 years. So when I started journaling, little did I know that this was his last 6 months. And so these last 6 months are recorded here. And we spent a lot of time at UVA undergoing testing. And on May 5th, 2017, the doctors told us that the Parkinson's, comes with many tentacles, and he had seizures, he had Parkinson's, and they just told us that, this disease usually has like 2.5 years, and that what it does to the brain is that it destroys cells, and that's why you're seeing can walk, can't walk, can feed himself, can't feed himself, until finally the switch in that section of the brain goes off. And they said you have probably, this was May 5th, they said you probably have 2 weeks. You should go home, and if there's any time that he's lucid and he wants to be a part of deciding his funeral, then you should do that now. And you can't be married as long as we have been, decide that if he's lucid, that's what you're going to discuss, you know. And we knew each other well, so we didn't need that kind of prep time. But it was difficult. And during that time, I did have to. I did have to have those plans in place. You know, one of the moments that I shared in the book is that we always say we, but it was me. We decided to go to a lawyer and make sure everything was in order, that there was no confusion, and everything was done according to the process. And Larry went with me, but he waited in the waiting room. And so when I came out, we got him and brought him in and went over everything. But at the same time, like on the way home, he said to me, honey, I don't blame you for getting a divorce. And see, that's the craziness of what we went through. Even though he was there, he wasn't there, but there was a little element of something. And it's just even like, God was so gracious, even like some of the times that we would be involved in, you know, our church counseling, he would talk to the person and just, I know it was the anointing, but he would answer them, he would have scriptures, he would have great advice, and as soon as they walked out the door, so did all the memory of that person. It was a very strange time for us, a very difficult time. But just as your worship team sang tonight, there was 3 things that I knew. I absolutely knew that he was my portion, and that he was totally capable of healing him. We've seen many great miracles. I didn't doubt that. I didn't know what God's plan was. But I decided I would trust him. Absolutely trust him. I knew that God could take him. That's exactly what the doctor said. I knew that was the direction things were going in. And yet I knew this, as hard as that was, I knew if that was God's plan, then it was what was best for Larry and myself. And I've had people ask me, did you think he was going to die? Sure. You know, I thought God could heal him, but I also thought what I was seeing was death too. Did I know that that was going to happen? No. I decided each day just to trust him with whatever God was deciding. There was a time, I don't even know that I've ever shared this, but there was a night that if you've ever been around anybody with any form of dementia, you know, as soon as the sun goes down, things get really bad. Delusion set in. But I remember one night that he was in so much pain, and he was so lost, that I did say to the Lord, if I love him so much, can't imagine step 2, like your decision is to take him. But if that's the plan, don't keep him here for me. I don't want him to be hurting like this, just for me. So if that's your plan, I'll be okay. It'll work. The third thing I knew is that we were already living past the 9 days or 2 weeks that the doctors gave us. He had lost all ability to care for himself in any way. Couldn't feed himself, couldn't take care of himself personally. It was difficult. To say difficult is not even on the surface of that. But I also knew that I was willing for those days to continue, no matter what. UVA was pushing me to make sure that we had everything lined up to have him in final days care. And I had already decided that would not happen. They warned me that he would become combative, and I wasn't naive. I had seen that. I was just believing that that would not happen. And the only thing that would ever change that in my mind is if I couldn't keep him safe during those times. But I knew I could trust God for those days, because he did say to me, I'm telling you, I am the least gifted person in nursing you would ever want to be in charge of you. I promise, that's not a modest statement. No. Get up, you know, we got 3 kids, and like, you gotta hurry, oh, it's too bad, I didn't get up, don't lay it on the carpet on the way out, you know, so I'm not the super nursey person. But, you know, so I said to God, I don't know about this. I don't know that am I wise enough? Not that I didn't want to, but am I wise enough? Do I know what I'm doing is right? And he said to me, I wouldn't give charge of my servant to anybody who couldn't. And that just gave me peace. I knew that was it. That God had a decision. So we stayed through those days, and they got rough. And every time I thought this had to be the worst that it could get, it always took another step. In so many crazy things that we shared here, but even on Father's Day, not any other day of the week, but Father's Day, he looks and says, we were with our middle son and his family, and he said, was I a good dad? And I always kind of dreaded those kind of sentences because they always had more in it than just a yes or no. And so I said, we've done the best. We've done a good job. We've done the best that we could do. They're good guys. And he said, but I don't remember them. I don't know them. And they were right there. It was hard. But he never knew them after that day, after Father's Day. He never knew them again. We would set out pictures and help him just review who they were if they were coming, and he would say their names, but he didn't know who they were. That was hard. But then, just like Jesus on the resurrection day, the third day, there came a day.
Yeah.
Amen.
Yeah.
And just like the birth of Jesus, I don't even know what time it was. But this I know. When we woke up that morning, it was over. I don't know if just Jesus and his angels were there and that night, that silent night, that very holy night for us. But he walked in the room and said, it's done. It's over. And on the funny side, on his side, he just got up. He went and took a shower. It was Monday morning. Our staff meets for prayer on Monday morning. And my mind had been so warped into the moments when he could do things and couldn't do things and knew things and didn't, that I didn't even register that he took a shower and that he got dressed by himself. Because nothing was normal up here for me either. And so he said, I'm going to staff prayer, which I thought was really cool because he didn't even know our son or the staff. So I thought, okay, well, whatever. And I knew in a few seconds, it's like the ocean, it would come and wash that away. So I just kind of waited on it. Okay, all right. Well, he just kept saying, I'm going. I thought, okay, but I getting keys to the car. So I just put him in the car, I called the staff, called one of the staff pastors, and I said, I'm dropping him off. This is a really good day for him. He's doing really well. If you need me, I'll sit in the parking lot or I'll come get him in an hour. And they said, no, we'll bring him home. I said, okay. And I sat in the parking lot, and at that time, we went to the back door, back in all this back way. And I'm thinking, oh, he's walking in, and there he is, gone. And so I sat there for a while, and I'm thinking, what's happening? And I love to tell you, I was like, oh, yes, God, you found him. No, I was going, very strange day, So I went home, and they brought him home, and he's never been able to walk up 3 steps to our house. Everybody's always had to help him in. I watch him get out of the car, come in, he walks up the steps, and I'm standing there getting ready to sort of help him, and he says, hey, let's go to breakfast, let's go shopping, let's go wash the car. And I'm going, oh, dear Jesus, and I know that like super spiritually. And so I thought, okay, I'll take him to breakfast. And nothing against Panera, but Panera to us is more of a girl place. And he's never said, take me to Panera, but he said, take me to Panera. And I said, okay, we'll go to Panera. And which was hard for me because UVA gave me a grief counselor, and we met at Panera. So, okay. Wow. So we go to Panera, and he worked with Chesterfield County policeman for a long time, and there was a policeman in there, and so he greets him and talks to him, and I realize, and he starts telling him that I've served with the policeman as a frontline chaplain. So I'm thinking, all right, God, I am a little slow today, but I got it now. I got it. So we went and sat in the car, and we did all the things that he just said we were going to do. I called our son, who's a great person of faith, just like his mom. And I tell him, hey, baby, guess what? We're doing this, we're doing that. And I told him about the morning, and he said, good, Mom. I'm glad Dad's having a good day. Okay, so I just hung up, and I'm kind of laughing. And I'm thinking, oh my goodness, and I'm watching him shop, and he's picking out jeans. He said, for some reason my clothes don't fit anymore, because he lost a lot of weight. And I'm just watching him do life. God is so good to us. God is so good to us. And see, here's what we knew immediately. That God did heal him for us, but the miracle is for you. Because if it was just for us, we were just going our happy little way. I was going to go down to Staples, copy this off, give it to our son, but God had another plan. And I don't know how many of you know TV Jakes. I love TV Jakes. One day, I get a text message from our youngest son, who's a photographer, and he has a picture of Amazon where, of course, it was only like 3 minutes, but I love it. I kept the picture. This book was number 1, and T.D. Jakes was number 2. And I thought he photoshopped it, and I said, hey, that's cute. And he said, no, Mom, look on Amazon, look on Amazon. And I thought, just to even have a picture beside T.D. Jakes, I was happy. But I knew it was for just a while, but I thought to myself, God, you were just so good. You're just so good. And so tonight, it doesn't matter what name has been attached to your heartbreak, whether it's physically, spiritually, mentally, the healer is here.
Amen.
The healer is here.
Amen.
And I just want to have Larry come on up. That's the end of the story. Larry's healed and he's here. And
Amen. Yes, Lord. Thank you, Jesus.
and he's pretty good about what he does. Pretty good.
She's a sweetheart.
Amen. Oh, Jesus.
I didn't know anything that happened. I had an unusual perspective. I knew I was sick. I had no earthly idea how much, and I don't have any memory of those 2.5 years. I don't have a single memory of those entire 2.5 years. I didn't know how bad it was until I read her book. I said, wow, we've been through this, and just gave me a tremendous love and respect for her that I've always had. And I honestly would not be here today. Her faith and her persistence and her care and her love. Most wives would have just put me in a nursing home, and that's what the University of Virginia suggested. She just refused to do that. That South Carolina stubbornness rose up, and she just refused to do that. And I'm just such a blessed person. God brought us here tonight to encourage you. I was praying all week, and I don't know why the Lord does this to me sometimes. I thought God gave me, and I think He gave me a message, and maybe we'll come back and preach it another time. Worked on it, and you may not understand that, but from my perspective, I'm from the old school. I normally put 25 to 30 hours in every message I preach, just formulating it, writing it out, getting it in my heart and my spirit, praying over it. And I was going to share with you a story tonight, how to live in the supernatural, because that's where we are. When God healed me and woke me up from that 2.5 years, He began to speak some very powerful things to my heart. Some of the things He has not freed me to share yet, some of them He has. But one of the first things the Lord spoke to me, I want you to go back through the book of Acts. And as you go back through the book of Acts, I want you to write down every miracle and every sign and wonder that was performed in the early church. As I begin, and you have to understand, Acts is my favorite book of the Bible. And I've taught it in college, I've taught it in every church I've ever pastored, and I'm having the privilege of teaching it right now at our church at Destination on Wednesday nights. And, so I've read it hundreds of times, but I began to read it again, and there was just a fresh anointing, a fresh spirit upon it, to my spirit. And I began to write down these signs and wonders and miracles, and God stopped me and said, I want you to understand something. When I poured out the Holy Spirit on the day of Pentecost and birthed the church, starting what you now understand is the prophecy of Daniel and Ezekiel, the church age, the time of the Gentiles. He said, when I did that, I purposely gave a supernatural manifestation of my presence among the people. I performed miracles, I healed, I delivered from demon possession, I raised people from the dead through the apostles, and I did all that to get people's attention so that they would come to the church, the temple at that time, and hear the gospel and be saved. Here's what I want you to write down. You are now living in the end of the church age. Now listen to this. You don't hear anything else tonight. You don't receive anything else. Receive this. He said, you are now living at the end of the church age, the time of the Gentiles. And I am going to end the church age exactly the way I birthed it. There's coming to any church who will receive it, who will accept it, a supernatural revival in the last day. You're going to see things like you cannot even imagine. You're going to see phenomenal miracles that cannot be explained by anything other than a miracle. After God healed me, we went back to UVA, and they asked me if I would consider being retested. And I went back through some of the testing, and they have documented it at UVA in Charlottesville that this is a miracle. There is no medical explanation. They wrote that there is no medical explanation. And in the history of their neuro clinic, which is one of the most sought after clinics in the southeast of the United States, I didn't know that, and it was just God that got us in there. When our neurologist in Chester told us that he wanted us to go to UVA, he told us it's probably 4 to 6 months before we get you an appointment. I was up there the next week, Jane told me. And God just put everything together. And they have documented, and the lead, I had 7 psychologists, 7 neurologists on my team diagnosing me and treating me and trying to help me. And they said in the history of their practice, they are not aware of anyone ever recovering from Lewy body dementia. But I was the only one that they ever knew that recovered.
Hallelujah. Yeah.
We serve a powerful God.
Yes, we do.
So I'm going to talk to you about all that. Maybe I'll come back and do that. But driving up this afternoon, the Lord spoke to my heart and said, I just want to encourage them. There's someone here tonight that has been asking God, and maybe several of you, not in a lack of faith, not in discouragement, not in anger or disappointment even, but you've been asking God, when?
Yeah.
Lord, why am I not receiving my miracle? When is it going to happen? And the Lord spoke to me and said, I want you to help them to understand why they haven't received it yet. It's just a real minor, we have a little trouble with the technology at the beginning of the service. That was God, because I needed an illustration. They found the right switch. I'm sure they were panicking and looking for it, but eventually they found it, and here it was. It just popped up, just like that. And we went on with the service with no problem. A lot of us live that same way. We just need to find the right switch. And the Lord spoke to me to share with you tonight the shortest verse in the Bible. And to the heart of God, let me get situated. To the heart of God, the saddest verse in the Bible. Some of you know it. John chapter 11 and verse 35. Where Jesus came to where Lazarus had died. And he stood before his 2 sisters, declaring to them, I am the resurrection and the life. If you believe, your brother will live again. And they were so caught up in their crisis. They were so panicked by by their situation that they couldn't hear him. He was standing right there before them, telling them, I'm the answer. You don't have to be afraid anymore. He didn't say, I was the resurrection. He didn't say, I'm going to be the resurrection. He declared to them, I am the resurrection and the life. They didn't hear it. And the Bible simply says, Jesus asked them, where have you laid him? And it said that Jesus wept.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard that verse used at funerals, and I'm not criticizing or correcting, but he didn't weep because Lazarus, his friend, had died. He knew exactly what he was going to do. You go back to the beginning of the story, and one thing that makes this story so significant, it has more space in the New Testament than any other story. An entire chapter just about dedicated to the death, burial, resurrection of Lazarus. And since God literally raised me from the dead, and that's what happened. I had not died, but I was dead. I've had an intriguing hunger to find out what was life like for Lazarus after he was raised from the dead. Can you imagine? Having been buried for 4 days and coming out of the grave alive, you think he just went back to a normal life? I don't know. I know this, and I've been shocked by people's response to me. The first Sunday I was healed, that we went back to the church, and Ryan shared the testimony with our church. After the service that morning in the foyer, this young man that I had privilege to minister to ran up to him and just stopped, tears running down his cheek. And he said, can I touch you? I said, what? He said, can I touch you? I said, well, how about a hug? He's just shaking like a leaf. And I had no idea what was going through his mind. And I've had several people, even it's been 2.5 years since God healed me. This morning, a person came up to me and hugged me and said, man, you look so good. How are you feeling? You still okay? like I want to go back to where I was. Sometimes it's hard for us to accept that God does for us. Even though it's standing right in front of us and we can see it, we can touch it. That's why Jesus told Thomas, here, touch my scars. I'm right here. You can see me. You can feel me. It's still hard for us to comprehend the good things that God can do. But it says in John chapter 11, and I want to read these 2 verses because it brings us to what I want to share with you tonight. And just a real brief message, and then we're going to pray for you, and God's going to do some wonderful things here tonight. I don't know exactly everything, but I do know there's someone here tonight with a kidney problem, and you've had a lot of problem with it. God's going to give you a brand new kidney.
Ooh, Jesus.
So just get ready for it. Just get ready. He's going to give you a brand new kidney. Several months ago, we were preaching in North Carolina, and an 80-year-old man got in the line to be prayed for. He had been a chartered member of his church, had attended that church for 40-plus years, had served on the board of deacons and was currently a deacon, but was having to resign and give it up because of health. He had a serious heart problem. All 4 of his major valves had ruptured and were leaking, and they were going to do open heart surgery and try to repair them. Monday morning, and he got out of the hospital and had them bring him to church. And he came up and we prayed for him. Monday afternoon, Monday evening, his pastor called me just excited, said, Pastor Larry, you're not going to believe it. Then he paused and said, well, I guess you probably would. Brother so-and-so went into surgery this morning, and when they got him opened up, he has 4 brand new valves.
Hey! Hallelujah! Yeah.
Well, that's wonderful. He said, no, you don't understand. He said, the old ones are still there.
Ooh.
God left the old valves in his heart just as a sign to the sacrifice. And right beside every one of them is a brand new one. God created 4 brand new heart valves. And that 80-year-old man is now in the choir again. He's still on the board, serving Jesus and serving God. We serve a now God.
Yes, Lord. Jesus.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Nothing he
Woo, nothing impossible.
Open our hearts works and let him do it.
Jesus.
And I want you to read verses 5 and 6 with me, because it says what so many of us, where we are today. Now, it opens up with a circumstance. Lazarus is the older brother of Mary and Martha. Now, this is the Mary that knelt down and wept and wiped the feet of Jesus with her hair and anointed him with extensive oil. This is the Martha that came to Jesus complaining. Mary, all she wanted to do was sit at his feet and worship. Martha's in the kitchen trying to cook for those 12 disciples, and you can just imagine that. I see Jane do that every Sunday. And Martha comes in there complaining that Mary is just, all she does is worship. And she said, Jesus, tell her to come help me. And Jesus said to Martha, Martha, you're worried about too many things. Mary has chosen the better thing.
Yes, yes.
And my point in saying all that is this, that Mary, Martha, and Lazarus were very, very close to Jesus. You do a biographical study of his earthly ministry. Anytime Jesus came within the area of Bethany where they lived, he spent the night with them. He ate with them, his whole entourage, his whole 12 disciples. They made room for all of them. And Jesus was very close. Lazarus could be considered his very best friend. If they text each other and have social media the way we do, that's the way it would be listed. BFF or however that is. And Lazarus got sick. Doctors couldn't help him. So Mary and Martha did what they were desperate. They did the only thing they knew to do. They sent a messenger quickly to Jesus and said, he who you love is sick. Please come. Now pick it up in verse 5. It says, now Jesus loved Martha and her sister and Lazarus. And when he had heard, therefore, that he was sick, he abode 2 days at the same place where he was. That sound right? That's like somebody calling me as a pastor and say, Pastor, so-and-so's in the hospital and dying. Would you please come to VCU? And I said, sure. Hang up the phone and just sit there for 2 days. Knowing it was a 2-day journey to get to where they were. It's a contradiction. How can it say that he loved them, yet when they were in their most desperate need and the most tragic time of their lives, he sat down and did nothing? You know, God could have healed me the first time I experienced this. God could have healed me. And I wonder, as I look back over that 2.5 years and I read her book, you know, being a part of a staff member of a church with 3,000 plus members, you would just think God would come down one Sunday morning when there's people packed wall to wall and back to front and come down and touch me and heal me in front of thousands of people and get glory. But he stepped into my bedroom one Monday morning, one Sunday night, I don't know what time it was, I went to bed and I woke up healed.
Amen.
Sometime during that night, Jesus stepped into my bedroom, and I believe he recreated my brain, because all of the previous MRIs and CAT scans, they put them up on the wall, had big black blotches and spots all in my brain, and the doctor explained to Jane, that's the part that has died, that's the part that dementia has eaten. Then after I was healed, they put the pictures up, totally clear, totally healthy, and I was seeing anything. I think God just gave you a brand new brain. I'm glad he did that, because they've always said I didn't have any sense.